the very first step in that brand differentiation is to understand what you yourself bring to that table.
Hello and welcome to episode 78 of the Smart Agents Podcast. My name is Michael Walter and I'll be your host. Today we are joined by sales and marketing strategy consultant Kurian Tharakan. After spending time in the commercial real estate industry himself, Kurian shifted focus to marketing. Throughout our conversation, Kurian shares his top tips for real estate agents and entrepreneurs alike to build a rock-solid brand and set themselves apart from the competition. Now, before we get on to the day's featured interview, make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents Podcast. You can find the show on all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and now Amazon Music. Also, as you can see if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Click the bell to get notifications when each new episode is uploaded. And lastly, if you or someone else on your team has an awesome story or tip to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new stories to share. All right, let's get on to today's featured interview with Kurian Tharakan. You can find Kurian's book, The 7 Essential Stories Charismatic Leaders Tell, on Amazon. And at the end of our conversation, we'll share how you could get a free copy. You know, the way I like to start everything out is have you introduce yourself a little bit to us, who you are, kind of where you're at in the world, and what you do.
Mike, thanks for having me on your show. So my name is Kurian Tharakan, and I am a sales and marketing strategy consultant way up here in Canada. And I think the reason you and I got together is that I reached out to you. I saw your show and I thought that was kind of a cool thing. I was in the commercial real estate business many years ago, right outside of university and such, and always enjoyed that business. And it always struck me that, the average real estate agent did not really take advantage of the tools available to them to really brand themselves as being different. And branding at its core is about differentiation. And so over the last, so that was one of my first jobs out of university. I spent 7-8 years in the commercial real estate business. And I eventually got into the marketing business and then the sales and marketing business. I've run sales and marketing teams for a number of different companies, one of which was a enterprise class software company. And, small little company, very large client. So how does a little company like this, a tiny business located in the tower in downtown Edmonton, get clients like Microsoft and Johnson & Johnson? And the only way you can do that is by having super deep differentiation in your brand and also being a niche that you can dominate. That's always a good thing as well, right? But the differentiation is the big thing. I eventually, and I'm not as young as I look. I'm in my late 50s right now. And so for the past 30 plus years, I've been slowly maneuvering my way through the sales and marketing channels. And in the last 10, 12 years, I've been working with a ton of startups, a lot of startup companies. And the vast majority of these startup businesses, they are run by PhDs and engineers and scientists, and they find themselves in a position where they have to now sell their products and their ideas to investors and partners and suppliers, let alone to the marketplace. And they didn't want to be perceived as being salesy. That's not what they went and got their PhD for. So we came up with a program just to get them to be able to deliver their message in a way that was not salesy, but still had that oomph to deliver that differentiation and that value proposition in a way that creates opportunities for them. So when I discovered your podcast, this is exactly the same struggle that especially new agents coming into the business have. How do you differentiate yourself? And so all of that, all of those realizations, it came together in a book I wrote a couple of years ago called The 7 Essential Stories Charismatic Leaders Tell. And that was published in January 2020. I've got a couple of copies back here. You probably see it right there. And it's a very simple framework to go out and deliver this brand message so that people see you differently and in a different light, in a different value proposition than all the other, hopefully commoditized now, brokers in your business. Yeah.
Right. And, that's talking about those startups and having to kind of, the PhDs and the folks that, a lot of times when they are bringing their product to market, they know a whole lot about it. They're really excited about it, but they don't know how to sell it. And the same thing for real estate agents, they are going after these houses. They're trying to get this listing, but they don't know how to sell themselves and connect.
I think that's absolutely correct. The great advantage that a 30-year veteran has in the real estate business is that they have a 30-year track record. and they know everybody, and they know the properties, and they know the marketplaces. And that is something that on the face of it, the lawyers call it prima facie. On the face of it, that is so evident when you have a 25-year-old fresh-faced rookie come in next door to them, right? So how do you differentiate that fresh-faced rookie in a way that is going to be substantially different than that 30-year-old vet? Because you're paying the same amount of money, whether it's a 7 and 3 or whatever else it is, right? And so the tendency is to gravitate to the old guy. And take advantage of his existing social networks and market knowledge and the ability to withstand the railings of a vendor, let alone somebody who's trying to buy, and be able to push back. And those are the kinds of things that new rookies are up against.
Right. And so when that new rookie is coming in, what are those kind of first steps that they need to start taking to start building that personal brand? Because I think a lot of it comes down to actually looking inward and figuring out what story you want to tell. Absolutely.
And, I think the biggest thing is that rookies, especially young rookies or rookies, period, we'll go with that, is that if you're going to be in this business for a long time, you have a relentless drive to succeed. And I remember starting out, in the commercial real estate business, as I mentioned earlier. And that first year, and this is way back in the mid 80s and the way late 80s. And this is, going through the commercial listings and cold calling that dry cleaner and the restaurateur and all these different types of people. And I was in the retail leasing business. And, more than once in that first year, and I was assigned to one of the senior partners there. And more than once in the first year, through those cold calls, I'm hung up on, I am not talked to very nicely, all that kind of thing. And that was very debilitating, super debilitating at that time. And, it wasn't really, a great boost to your ego in the process. But about a year in, I discovered something about myself. And that was, I've gotten to know this marketplace. I know who is moving in, who is moving out, what the landlords are doing for incentives, what the rental rates are. You would have to be a bloody idiot to not want to talk to me. You would have to be an idiot. And at that moment, a little switch went off in my brain. A little on switch went off, and my confidence rose by 20 times. Mm-hmm. And the next call I made, I went in as an authority. I only had a year under my belt, but I had one more year than anybody else I was talking to. Right? Mm-hmm. And again, I had market knowledge in that year, and I had deal knowledge in that year. And that confidence came up like this 20 times. No one hung up on me in the next 20, 30 years. I had one guy after. I spent 12 years in the mergers and acquisitions business, buying companies, selling companies, raising capital. So I was in my mid 40s at that time. But in the 20s, in those years after in the commercial real estate business, no one hung up on me. In my 40s, when I was selling this one company, I was with a big accounting firm at that time, a national accounting firm. And I was representing this multi-million-dollar business. And I called up a potential buyer, cold called, in Ontario to see whether they wanted to buy it. And the guy said, and I introduced myself. Hi, Kurian Tharakan. I'm with PricewaterhouseCoopers, right? And he hung up, not interested. And I hung up on him. And I looked at the phone and I said, you are a bloody idiot. And the reason why is he doesn't know who I am. I could be his biggest customer's son. I could be his next biggest customer. You would have to be an idiot. So the very first step in that brand differentiation is to understand what you yourself bring to that table. So it's everything from market knowledge to deal knowledge to character. Character is a big one, especially when you are starting out. And in the entrepreneurs that I work with, they are often subject matter experts, but I'm also looking for whether they have a relentless drive to succeed. and that's what's going to carry you through some of the, darkest moments, is that relentlessness to keep moving forward. And, buyers can see this, sellers can see this, and that's what they're looking for.
Right. So when you talk about that, how do you, kind of present that so that a buyer or a seller sees that's not something that you're, every agent says you're always going to be there for me. You're going to answer everything. Sure. You're going to always do that. I mean, when it comes down to it, that's kind of been everybody's marketing pitch, but how do you actually show that?
Well, I'll tell you when not to show it. And when not to show it is when you meet that buyer or seller for the first time. That's the wrong place to show it. And I'll tell you why. I do a lot of blog writing, and I've got a great little article about how to increase the persuasiveness by some astronomical percentage. I got to go back and look at it. And I use the example of a Boeing 747 jet, massive thrust in these four huge turbofan engines, Rolls-Royce turbofan engines, right? And it takes about a mile and a half to get this Boeing 747 off the jet. Off the runway, a mile and a half. In a perfect world, you'll give a mile and a half a runway. Sometimes you can do it in a mile. You know what you can't do it in? You can't do it in 600 feet. And that's what the average salesperson, that's what the average realtor tries to do, tries to get this massive lift in the customer's imagination, okay, into the sky of possibility in 600 feet. You can't do it. It's really tough. And if you can, I want to meet you. I'd love to know your secret. So that mile and a half, the 600 feet is when you meet them. The remainder of that mile and a half is all the priming runway that you have to send them advanced materials, not only on the projects you're working on, but also on yourself and who are they meeting? What's the background? What is your experience? And if you are a rookie, you sort of say that, but you do it in a meaningful way. And you do it in the following kind of thing, right? You were rookie of the year, or you have, you have 7 listings that you have been able to sell in the last, 6 months. And people will then see that you have that drive and you have that passion and you have that ability to take their property forward in a way that the old guy may not be able to. A lot of people want to give that opportunity to the new people.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Definitely. And, one of the interesting things that I see that you talk about is actually, discovering your customers' hidden motivations. I think that's really important because your approach to dealing with each person is going to be dependent on what their motivation is.
Yeah. What did, I forget who said this. I don't know, James Pierpont Morgan. And he's talking a little sexist at the time, but a man always has 2 reasons for doing anything: a good reason and the real reason. And so you got to get to that real reason. And so what is that hidden motive? And the hidden motives, you have to not only pay attention to what they're saying, but what they're not saying as well. And if you've been in the marketplace for any length of time, there's a certain set of things that you have to have in order for deals to come together. So you look at what people are avoiding, what people are gravitating to, and you interpolate between those data points to figure out what is the lens that this individual is viewing the world through. I've done more than one deal because people like me. Mm-hmm. That's it. Because people like me, they like me for some reason. And that's not, and it's nothing that I've had to change about myself, but it's something that I have to provide them the opportunity to absorb, not in that 600 feet, trying to get them off the runway, but in that mile and a half. And there's plenty of opportunity to do that. In the 6 months of priming that marketplace, to the 3 months that you're starting to go target a specific property, to the month and a half where you're signing up for the listing and moving the marketplace forward. There's tons of opportunity. You should always be in that branding business.
Absolutely. And when it comes to that, the finding that motivation, a lot of it just comes down to listening and kind of stop talking for a moment and really kind of listen to what they're talking about.
The listening, one of my earliest sales mentors, I hesitate to call him that because I didn't like him very much, but he has some good points. And he said, Kurian, and I tend to talk a lot. Kurian, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. Therefore, you should listen twice as much as you speak. And I was probably a lot more yappy back then. But at this point in time, silence is your friend. Ask a question and let silence promote and instigate the responses that are really driving the motives that is provoking the situation, right? To come to a conclusion or even falling apart, because that's how you're going to discover how to pull it back together.
Right. I want to touch on another, when it comes to real estate in particular, a lot of times when people are starting out, they go to those larger, branded brokerages, and everybody, thinks, oh, I have this nice big logo that I'm kind of behind, but that's not going to do it for you. It's really creating that personal brand. So, how do you try to get people to really step out and become their personal brand rather than hiding behind, the list of large logos?
This is true of almost any company, right? I can't buy Chase. Now, I can't buy Chase. I can only buy an individual banker at Chase that has the ability, the stroke, to be able to get a deal done. If I'm doing a commercial loan, for example, right? I remember when we were placing loans up here in town, even though we had the same bank, we would choose a very specific branch of that bank. If we had an ag loan, we'd only take it to one branch of that bank because they were specialists in ag loans. Right. And then there's an individual there that had the stroke to pull the deal together. So you don't walk in through the front door. Well, that's the same kind of situation. Now, so if I'm choosing one individual at a branch, not only does that individual have brand resonance with me, but then the branch has brand resonance with me, and then the institution, and it falls in that order. So if you are a Remaxer, okay, if you're with Remax or Century 21 or whatever else it is, that's just the institution backing the promises that you are making, right? If something fraudulent happens, I can go to Remax. But Remax isn't getting the deal done. You are. So the idea of what I'm buying into, what am I buying into? Your character, your experience, and your knowledge. And the experience doesn't have to be, like I don't want to deal with a rookie that's been on the street for a day. That's kind of tough, right? But at the moment of 3 months, you have 3 more months more experience than I do. And if it's at 6 months, at the beginning, it's almost an exponential curve of value that you are delivering to that customer the next time you meet them.
Right. And when it comes to, that personal branding, it's all about getting your brand out there. So being as visible as possible. So what tips do you have there to making sure that, your market visibility is maximized?
The easiest thing to do is to do something as simple as a short blog, like a super short blog. And here's an example just off the top of my head. I'm always curious about things that are happening in the marketplace today. Like, what's my condo? I'm sitting in my condo right now in downtown Edmonton. What's my condo worth today? I know it's worth a little less than it was last year because of the market conditions, right? Where is it going to go? So those kind of prognostications are always interesting to me. But what's more interesting than just where the future is going is also how do I maximize the value of my property in this market, in this neighborhood? So here's an example. Here's the last 3 listings that sold in this neighborhood. And then if you started telling me why they sold at the price they sold, what was the reason for that? Are, massive closets and built-ins the thing now? Okay, is the reason why, this property sold below market is the whole place was decked in 1970s oak. That's entirely possible, right? I read a great article about real estate and how the SAF factor really nailed home whether something was appealing on the face of it. We go back to this prima facie thing the lawyers talk about, on the face of the evidence. And that is on site. Wow, I need to buy this. When my wife and I walked into this place, and she saw the jacuzzi tub in the back, she grabbed me by the collar and said, I want this. I want this. And it was that trigger. Everything else was good until the jacuzzi tub, and bang, lust is triggered. So I want to know what those kind of things are. So the SAF factor is style, art, fashion. So the SAF factor is continually moving. So what was considered style, art, fashion, 10 years ago, 20 years ago is maybe coming back today. I know the 60s, 70s type of looks are coming back today, but, it keeps moving. So that SAF factor, some of those things that really drive that immediate resonance, that immediate emotional appeal. If you were to become an expert on what's moving buyers to buy today, right, and even offer an insight, and you're not going to be appealing to everybody that reads that little blog post. And I'm not talking 50 paragraphs. I'm talking about 4. I'm talking about 3 about what's working today. I'm reading your blog. That is what's going to happen. I'll tell you what I don't read. And I've got my own realtor. I've probably done 3 deals with her over the years. I like her, and I keep getting this stuff in the mail. It's from her, and I throw it in the what do you call it? Into the recycling. The moment I'm talking about valuations and what's moving and all those kinds of things, I'm always interested in what's happening, right? And so you got to trigger, you got to be able to deliver value to that customer, even when they're not buying.
Right.
So how do you deliver those kind of value points, even when there's cash not being transacted? And that kind of information is going to be something that really sets you apart with everybody else, from everybody else. And here's the best part about it. Out of 100 people that might be listening here today, 1,000 people that might be listening here today, 1.5% of you are going to take me up on that advice. So the marketplace is still going to be very uncrowded for you to differentiate yourself.
Right. And when I think about, just thinking, on that, what made something sell idea, it's so easy to walk through your listing after it is sold and shoot a quick little video and say, this is what our buyers keyed in on. Yeah. And, that's a piece of content that.
Do you ever watch these real estate shows where people set up a hidden camera and, and they take the vendor out of the house and they set up the hidden camera and let people just wander in, and the house is all mic'd up, and you get to hear their real thoughts on what the house is all about. And, this place is really dark. Wow. 70s, shag carpet, and you get to hear all these kind of and at the beginning, it's sort of, it's kind of hurtful at the beginning because this is your home, right? But they're also telling you immediately how to improve the value, the perceived value of that home. Because, home purchases are as much about imagination and evoking imagination and an emotional purchase than it is about the hard facts of, what the comparatives are in the neighborhood. That's the whole difference between a house and a home. That is the whole difference, right? And so evoking that emotion, when you see those hidden camera comments, they're giving you the recipe to actually build value immediately with some very small changes. Right.
Kind of moving on a little bit, I just want to talk to you about, we've talked a lot about the newer agent, the rookie agent.
Yeah.
Before that agent that is looking to start their own brokerage, kind of bring on their own people. How can they be an effective leader in bringing in people and training them to brand themselves and market them? So what kind of tools can they give them?
I think here's the real thing about branding. The very first thing that anybody buys from you, and I don't care what you're selling. I don't care what you are selling. Computers, televisions, homes, companies. The very first thing that anybody buys from you is the big idea. Okay, which then translates into a series of core messages, which then translates into a strategic narrative. Okay, and the strategic narrative has the customer as its hero. Okay, and that hero is now in a place that is current and they want to get into some kind of a transformation to get to some kind of future state that's going to be different and better and just great. And so you then become the fairy godmother, the wizard that grants this magic potion, the amulet, the incantation to allow that transformation to take place, right? So that's what you are. So in your example, that is now the broker or the agent. It depends on what jurisdictions you're in, right? But the owner of the agency. So at that point in time, you have to take a look at the kind of agents you are attracting. So if you're attracting the grizzled vet with 5 years left, they're going to have a set of different motives than if you're attracting a bunch of rookies. And you have to treat those as completely different segments. Completely different segments, right? Now, a 30-year vet probably has an established brand, doesn't need a lot of help from the agency, but needs somebody to carry their license and things like that. The young broker, the young agent, just, a year into it and things like that, they're still trying to figure things out. And so the mentorship and the ability to tap tools that allow them to build their own brand. And so what is that brand? So you have to come up with a story that Bob has, which is different than Sally, and encourage them to be different. Okay, and Sally may specialize in young families. That's her brand. Okay, and Bob might specialize in retirement living. That's his brand. And part of the issue that people have is that when they specialize, they think they are leaving a good chunk of the marketplace on the table, and they want to still capture. You know what? You can do that, but what you're really doing is not capturing all of the vertical that you could possibly capture, because you're so diluted across the board. Oh, yeah, I can sell you anything. It's not as good as I'm a specialist in condominium living. We used to have a lady in town here, and I will tell you the story. We used to have a lady in town here by the name of Connie Kennedy, and Connie's gone now, but I saw her name left and right. I did not use her, associate her name with estates or new family homes or, multi-strata or whatever it is. She was the condo queen. She was absolutely condo queen. She knew every condominium building in town, and I'd never met her before. But I knew Connie Kennedy was the condo queen. One day, I'm the condo board president in my condo complex. One day, I get a call from Connie Kennedy, and I was the status that whoa, Connie Kennedy is calling me, and it's because I'd seen her name for 30 years. And she had such a tightly defined brand that the brand luster, the brand halo, I'm paying attention to what Connie's saying. I want to help her out. I want to get her the condo documents, lickety split, because she had that kind of brand luster.
Yeah. I think, and the specializing, I think it's interesting now, because as things have evolved, we're seeing that more kind of that boutique and that more specialized, business come to light. It's not so generalized anymore. People are really able to have these more boutique brands. I talked to a gentleman not too long ago that they're based out in Montana or Idaho, I think, and they specialize, or Boise, Idaho, that's it. And they specialize in all the mid-century modern homes. That's what they do. And they crush it. And because everybody knows, if that's what I'm looking for, these are the guys I'm going to.
So you have to be that specialization, again, is a knowledge, is experience. Is it just a whole bunch of young, relentless rookies that are just going to cover the market for it? What is it? Whatever that specialization is, that's what people really want to buy into. I have a digital marketing agency here in Edmonton, and this is outside of my personal company. So I've got a couple of young partners. I'm the senior partner. I'm 20 years older than my partners, right? A little bit more gray hair than them. 35 years older than the average rank and file. The moment we declared ourselves to be a Shopify marketing agency, so we only work with Shopify merchants, our demand took off. And so we only work with merchants now on the Shopify platform. You're not on the Shopify platform, we don't work with you. And it is a completely different experience, not only for the merchants that are coming to us right now, trying to get their e-commerce store up and running and moving forward, but also for us. It is the resistance is so low and the demand is so high, it's a completely different business. So the specialization is what did that for us. And you're going to find that that's going to work equally as well for you.
Right. Well, the way this conversation is going, I know we could talk for hours and have so much great information coming from you, but, tell me about where people can find your book to get more information from you and kind of get more of these tips.
Sure. So the book is called The 7 Essential Stories Charismatic Leaders Tell. You can find it on Amazon, Amazon.com, Amazon Japan, Amazon Canada. And there's a hardcover and there's Kindle. The Kindle is only $3.49. I just wanted to get the information out there. It's a great little simple model that anybody can use, right? And what you're going to find is that people can only understand their world through the stories they tell themselves about it. And the opposite is also true. People can only understand you through the stories that they tell themselves about you. Here's the problem, okay? The stories they tell themselves about you, if you don't guide that narrative, they're going to make up their own story. It may not be the story you want. So you want to take the opportunity to prime that audience with exactly the narrative that is most beneficial to you. So it's available on Amazon, but I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, Mike. For the first 5 of your listeners that email me at Kurian@StrategyPeak.com, and I'll get you some assets for your show notes. I'm going to send them a free Kindle copy of the book.
Perfect. Awesome. We really appreciate it. And, like I said, this conversation is very interesting to me because it crosses so many different industries. Sales is sales, no matter what you're selling. And that personal branding really does, touch on every one of those.
Absolutely correct. Right. You can only experience the business through the representative that you have first, and then the products that they deliver. Right. And the rep is the conduit for instilling that emotional resonance, the confidence, the ability to see yourself, the imagination of possessing that product, service, or in your case, a home, and if they can't do those kind of things, if they can't get in front of you, which is the differentiation part, they're not going to have the ability to do that. So specialize, and that's the way to brand differentiation.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Mike, thanks a lot. I've had fun.
I want to thank Kurian for joining us today. And I really appreciate how enthusiastically he shares his tips and advice for separating yourself from the crowd. Again, be sure to check out his book, The 7 Essential Stories Charismatic Leaders Tell. I've added a link in the episode description. So once again, if you think you or someone else on your team has an awesome story or a tip to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. Well, that wraps things up for this episode. But remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.